Welcome, everybody, to our She-Hulk recap show. We missed you guys. We know that we missed a week. We're going to owe it up to you by doing two episodes, covering two episodes, this conversation, which means, as always, it will go over the regularly allotted 1 hour that we're supposed to stick to, that I never stick to. It's just going to be way worse today than all the other days because we missed two episodes. No, I'm joking, guys. Honestly speaking, so excited to talk to this crew right here. We've got some familiar faces that you guys might have seen in other She-Hulk shows and some from our Ms. Marvel recaps. But either way, I think if you guys have talked to us and seen us, you know you're in for a damn good show. So without further ado, round of introductions. I'm Mike Manalo, as you guys already pretty much know. I'm going to kick it off to Jasmin Joestar. Jasmin, how are you and what are you eating today?
Hey guys, I'm Jasmin. Thank you for having me back. I was on the Ms. Marvel shows and I'm excited to be here for She-Hulk. And I'm just, staying hydrated. So you guys do the same at home.
Yeah, it's a sweltering one here in LA, guys. So if you're watching here on the West Coast, especially in LA, hopefully you're staying cool. Thanks, Jasmin. Next up, we've got Carolyn Poddig. Hey, Carolyn, what you eating?
So, hi guys, it's great to be back. I'm really excited that Nom Talk wanted me to come back to talk about She-Hulk, especially these last two episodes because they're really exciting. And I made them promise because, a lot of episode 2 takes place at the gastropub, and I had to satisfy that She-Hulk level hunger.
Oh my god!
And you know what? I couldn't have done it without my She-Hulk level candy bar.
Oh, nice. A Choco Smash, too.
Straight from Avengers Campus.
Straight from Avengers Campus. I love it. Carolyn, we need to bring you on so that you could bring all the Avengers food with you every single show. And that's just awesome. I love it. Look at that. Like, huge freaking candy
That was
bar.
massive. Yeah, but seriously.
One of my favorite snacks there too, as well. I always take one. It takes me a week to get through. But yeah, love it. Love the chocolate smash bar. Thanks, Carolyn. Mm-hmm. And last but not least, my colleague from the Nerds of Color, Mike Lee. How are you? And what you eating?
What am I eating? Well, I don't have anything to eat. I just had pizza. That's it. I would have brought, hot Cheetos with chopsticks, but I finished that last week. So.
On our debut show, I brought Cheetos, but they weren't hot Cheetos, which was disappointment number one. Disappointment number two was that I didn't have chopsticks and I was using my hands. So it was a bust. So on one of these shows, at some point in the future, we are definitely going to have flaming hots.
We have to do it.
Yeah, yes. We're going to have flaming hots with the chopsticks. And for those wondering, I am endorsing Diet Coke today, our sponsor, Coke Zero today. So that we can get a sponsorship, and also from the makers of Ted Lasso, a box of biscuits, that I'm just kind of munching on here, just to try them out from straight from England. Not really, but anyways, yeah,
close enough.
Yes. So food aside and intros aside, who's ready to talk a little She-Hulk? There you go. I love the 100% soft pin there, Mike.
I got this too. I can't forget this.
Yeah,
I have like literally all of them. So.
I didn't even realize that they made Zoom Zooms for She-Hulk. It is awesome. But yeah, love it. Also, Smash Ketchum OG. Woof, what I wouldn't give to try those biscuits. I at some point in time, they're going to have to mass manufacture that. And we'll, if we ever get a box, because we get some endorsements somehow, I'm totally going to send them to you, Smash Ketchum. So having said that, I'd love to start with you, Jasmin, because you are wearing, and just you understood the assignment from a fashion perspective today, you are wearing an amazing She-Hulk shirt. Tell us your thoughts. What did you think of the first the next two episodes 2 and 3 of the show so far?
Oh my God. It's like a breath of fresh air. I feel like the MCU has been like steadily very dark, or at least the shows have been. WandaVision, Loki, there's always been Moon Knight, just super dark themes. So She-Hulk was a really, Miss Marvel was a nice break. But she was a child, so we weren't gonna really see a dark side. It's like Spider-Man. But with She-Hulk, she's an adult, and I feel like she's so well balanced, down to earth, and it's comedical. And it's so funny. My neighbor calls me today, and she's the furthest thing away from a Marvel fan. And I gave her my Disney Plus login. And Mickey, don't hate me. I can share it with people. But she's like, "Oh my god, I love this show," and it like clicked that we're Marvel fans. Obviously, we're nerds. We were watching this from a different point of view. But people who aren't fans of the show, not the show, but the comics and the lore, and have no idea who She-Hulk is, are enjoying the show too. And I think that speaks volumes, because I think every other show has been very deep, knees deep into Marvel. Like, you should have seen all the movies so far to understand what's happening with Winter Falcon, or now Captain America Winter Soldier. What happened with Loki, that was way too intense for your average viewer. But She-Hulk really it's great. So if anybody really wants to watch and enjoy a Marvel show, we can as Marvel fans, and so can Marvel fans as well. So I'm loving it, and I'm definitely enjoying it a lot.
Awesome. Carolyn, what about you? Episodes 2 and 3. Thoughts?
I loved episode 3. And I have to echo what Jasmine said, because it's a fun show. I don't feel bad going to, at Disneyland, there's a bench, and everybody loves these benches because they have She-Hulk on the bench. And everything that I have wanted from Marvel ever since Infinity War was, what is on the ground level? What are these here? What is so relatable about these heroes that, people can really connect with? What is it like? What is Hollywood like when, superheroes really exist? Is there like a cowboy cinematic universe? Is there like, what do they make movies about? Because our society is so built on this particular franchise. And the fact that in 2 and 3, like three especially, they've gone places, man. And I'm really enjoying the hilarity that they're doing. Like, oh my god.
Love it. I'm loving that you guys are loving the show so far. Mike, what about you? 2 and 3?
2 and 3, I have to agree. After 1 was just a typical origin story, I think it's finding its place right now, kind of finding its voice. It's all comedic. It just feels very meta. It knows what it knows what it is, and it's just finally solidifying itself within the universe as the sitcom, legal drama. It's juggling a lot, but it's really handling it really well. So I really agree with Carolyn and Jasmine.
That's awesome to hear. I will say this. I think I do have some issues with 2 and 3. I think, Mike, you and I chatted about one of them, I think, which is a silly moment, but it's a very minuscule moment in the grand scheme of what the show is and everything like that. But that being said, I don't want to dwell on the negative here, and I don't want to go into any of that. The thing that I love is, and Jasmine, you kind of hit the nail on the head here. Whether you're a Marvel fan or not, people are responding to this show, because I think what I love, from the get-go, is that Jessica Gao really establishes what this show is going to be. And I think that you didn't need the rest of the MCU to set this up for you. You just needed that first episode of She-Hulk to set up what this is and what it's going to be. And you're either with it or you're not. And, the one thing was, before the show aired, I got to see the first 4 episodes, and I was kind of like, how are people who have been so used to these stories of trauma and these darker, interconnected, interwoven stories about these tortured heroes, how are they going to respond to this? And it was very surprising to hear that the reception has just been stellar, And the fact of the matter is, people love this. They find it refreshing. And I think it's become a beacon and a breath of fresh air for so many people, you guys included, for sure. I think that's one of the best things I like about it is people are responding to it. People are with it. People know it. They get it. And I think Jessica Gao is clear about that. And I love that, people are getting that from this show, regardless of whether or not I have issues with it. That doesn't really matter. So that's great. So with the second episode, We really, pick up where that first episode left off. She hulks out from Jen to She-Hulk, and she stops Titania. How does that affect her career? And we kind of automatically see that she gets fired for it, which is really sad because she doesn't quite lose the case, but it definitely goes to mistrial because she intervened, and the jury is grateful for that, which is kind of horrible. And it sort of poses that age-old question when it comes to superhero lore, which I really love that they throw that in there. Is it better to do the right thing and save these people? Or do you try and keep this in and try and preserve your own livelihood? In her case, her job. If you think about like Man of Steel, it's his identity. Should he reveal this identity in order to save these kids? Spider-Man, countless times, am I not allowed to have the thing that I want the most? I mean, the way that She-Hulk, I think, kind of presents this, it's very relatable because, we've all job hunted before. We've all been there before. And I was going to call her Tat because it's Tatiana Maslany. Jen is in a bad place in the beginning of the show, just kind of job hunting and ready to become a mascot at a theme park somewhere because she's not able to get a gig because of her identity and of her condition. What do you guys think of this? I mean, like how they started out this second episode. Does anyone have any thoughts about how they approached it and what you guys saw?
The absolute tragedy of being in a position of power where you could theoretically do good, and Jen was in that position, and then being fired for it is probably one of both the most tragic and most interesting things I've seen in a superhero movie, because you don't really see that in like DC. I mean, like you see like Bruce Banner is Bruce Banner. It's Bruce.
Yeah.
Because orphans, to quote the show, because apparently being a hero is also for rich orphans, which I thought was really, really kind of a nice little nod. But you don't really see like the impact of what that has on like the day to day. And I said that before, but with this, I don't know, it broke me because I looked up the law and it's like you can't view. She influenced the jury. Like I was like, this can't be legal, but it is. Like she influenced the jury in a certain direction, and the guy she didn't lose the case, but the guy was in the right to let her go because as a lawyer she was compromised ethically, and I was just like, man, that's and to see how they bend that was just wild. That was absolutely wild to me.
Jasmin, you were about to say something as well. Did you have?
Yeah. So for those that might have picked it up already, She-Hulk is notorious for doing the same thing Deadpool does, which is breaks the fourth wall. And I think breaking the fourth wall just traditionally means that the character is speaking directly to the audience. So they're aware that they are being watched in a sense, and they'll speak right to you. However, I think it goes to another level where it's like not just speaking directly to us, but being very realistic. Like her being let go, was something that is, unfair in my opinion, but it's very realistic, right? Good deeds do go, don't go unpunished, right? And so there's many other things where in this episode as well, and we'll get to it, where they're scrolling through social media comments online, and everything is just very it is very in touch. It's not in a fantasy setting. It's not in a different, realm. This is very much real life, day to day, dealing with harassment, dealing with the way you look, dealing with the fact that she's female and powerful, dealing with, the saving people, but she gets ultimately punished for it, which, I feel like if it was Captain America that swung in and saved the day, I don't know, or Daredevil or somebody, because he's a lawyer too, I feel like it would have went in a different direction. But so I think that that fourth wall that's being broken is not just her talking to us, but it being like not fantasy, but actually realistic. And realistic scenarios. So I thought it was very interesting with that courtroom scene, and heartbreaking because I'm actually in the middle of looking for a job too. So when she was going through that, I was just like, I feel that so heavily. and it's tough. You start to have like an identity crisis. So she's having like double the identity crisis of like, not only am I looking for a job, but I also am going through a whole change.
Yeah.
So I thought that hit pretty close to home.
Mike, anything from you?
I can't really add anything more than that, but to what Jasmin was saying, when I interviewed Jessica Gao, to her Yasmin's point about the fourth wall, it feels like we're more of an I guess accomplice would be a bad thing to say because it's a legal thing, but it feels like we're really a part of her journey now. As she speaks in the fourth wall, it's not really used in a way that Deadpool uses it, but it's just saying like, this is, leading from A to B sort of thing. It just feels like we're more a part of her story than just saying a wink and a nod sort of thing. So yeah,
we're her buddies, so we feel for her when she's job hunting. I think that helps. Actually, the fourth wall break really helps us sympathize with her. Sadly, I did laugh when She-Hulk attorney at law turns into She-Hulk attorney for hire. I mean,
I thought that was clever.
we shouldn't laugh at that, but it's kind of funny.
I think we've all been there. We can all laugh. We laugh not at her, but with her. We feel
with her, and we feel her pain. And we've at one point or another considered becoming, mascots in an obscure theme park in Europe somewhere.
There's no shame in being a mascot.
No shame for that at all. But
in Europe, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Did Disneyland open a Marvel hotel or a Marvel park?
See,
there you go. Go to Europe, like you said.
I mean, shit. If somebody asked me to be the Shang-Chi at Avengers Campus, I'd consider that a freaking honor. I'd be like, you really think I look like Shang-Chi? That's awesome. Nobody thinks that, just for the record. But anyways, I'd be honored. I mean, I'd be happy to be a mascot. But that being said, Jasmin, you pointed out something that I really loved, and it's one of the things I really think the showrunners get, and Marvel Studios in general as a company get. They get their audience and they get their fans. And I think when if you've gone through 12 years of films, more than that, 14 years of films, and you go through the comment section on Twitter and on YouTube, you're going to see the same types of comments, especially when it comes to female-driven shows. We saw it with Ms. Marvel. We saw it with WandaVision. We saw it with Captain Marvel. And it's all of these horrible trolls, sexist, misogynistic trolls, just going, oh, a female superhero? How derivative. Where are the white male superheroes at? And all that crap. So for Marvel to really understand, see that on a daily basis, and then stick it in a show to comment on it and really stick it to those types of trolls. Awesome. I love that. It not only makes things a lot more realistic, but it gives them the opportunity to kind of fight them back in a way. I mean, like, it's controversial enough for Kevin Feige to go on Twitter and bash people, anonymously in the comment section, but you have the power to stick it in your art, and they stuck it in their art. And I think that it shows both awareness and a little bit of bravery as well, to kind of combat that. So I love that you caught on to that. I love that you commented on it as well. Does anyone have any thoughts on that idea? I guess the comment section and everything that and how reflective of real life it really was.
This was in episode 3, just to let you guys know. It's when her friend is like going through the iPad and is like going through all these comments and saying like, hey, you need to make a statement for yourself. You need to, go online and make this story about you. And she's like, I don't want to, which is another thing, by the way, that I think is really important, because heroes in the past, they seem to be, we've had some pretty cocky superheroes, right? Like, especially Avengers, like all the way from Tony Stark, which is the most egocentric person. Yeah. And I love Tony, but like you have him, you have, Steve Rogers, Captain America, you have, all these people that are just super flashy in front of the camera, like idols. And she's like, I just want to be a lawyer. I just want to do my job. I accept who I am, and I'll use it when I have to, and I'll deal with it. And that's that. But like her not wanting to respond to the comments and turning her head, I think was an important message in itself. And I think it's interesting because this is like a bit personal, but I did something with Marvel a long time ago where they featured my Miss Marvel cosplay way back in like 2016, 2017. There was so many hate comments, and this just wasn't for me. This was for other people as well that had done things for them. It was their cosplay becoming series that they turned off comments when they could turn off comments. So they turned off comments on YouTube. The ones on Facebook stayed open, but those same comments that they were scrolling through and showing were the same comments that I received as well, which is like, why are there girls and why are we pandering to PC culture? And they were using the same buzzwords that, you know, these people were using. And in terms of criticizing female superheroes, like, oh, why do they have to be female and blah blah blah. So I'm really, really happy that, you know, that, like you said, Mike, they're clapping back essentially. This is like this is Marvel being like, you know, we do see you, we see this you look ridiculous. And the fact that she's like, I'm not going to even entertain it, I think was one of the best things she could have done. She's just like, yeah, no, I'm better than this, you know? And I thought that was a beautiful response to it. And yeah, I really like, again, like very meta, very breaking the fourth wall, fifth wall, sixth wall, whatever it is, to recognize today what social media looks like. So I thought that was very important.
They are indeed clapping back, or rather thunder clapping back, which would be awesome. But yeah, no. And also it's definitely that third episode. And finally, I'm glad that she does take that interview. But in the beginning of the second episode, where the guy christens her She-Hulk, the anchor christens her She-Hulk, there's also that like glimpse of these TikTok videos of these assholes, I'm just going to say it, like just kind of blasting her and going like, oh, you know, how unoriginal, you know, now we have to make all the heroes female, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, that's real life. Unfortunately, we are dealing with, you know, people like that on a regular basis. And it's just, if you're going to take issue with a show, okay, like I can understand it if maybe the writing's not for you, if you're not the audience for this, you know, if maybe you have criticisms about character development, the work of art itself, okay, but don't hate a show just because there's a strong female character in the lead. I mean, and I think that a lot of people do that on the internet, and I think that Marvel's aware of that. So I'm very much glad that they've kind of pointed that out. Any other thoughts on that?
If I may,
yeah, please.
What I hope Marvel does next. So they've clapped back. They've called it out. What I hope Marvel does next is find a way to continue to clap back and find a way to respond to those people. And I'm not saying do like what they did, you know. I don't know. There have been a couple of instances. I don't think anyone in this chat is a stranger to people online who've come into the comment section or who you've responded to, and then suddenly like they've retweeted your post, or they've retweeted a response to you, and suddenly your comment section is full of people who are calling you names. There are a number of people who are doing who are in some movements on the internet that are dedicated to pushing this culture war narrative. And when you push against them, and then they try and hold you up as an object of ridicule. In the show, when they were calling her the big green woman, and it's like, I loved that she kind of owned that. And I would like to see, hopefully, I don't think you can't respond to the comment section. You have to turn it off. I would like to see her own the things that they said about her, and kind of take it and just keep living so authentically. I do identify as non-binary. I was born a female. I was born a woman. I do identify as non-binary. To be open about yourself on the internet in such a way, and to come out and have that coming out experience, that was for me what hit really hard with those comments in the comment section, was that concept of, this is who you are and this is who you live with. And it's like, my roommate is trans and she had that whole experience too. So the more I watch She-Hulk, the more I see that like, this is a strong female empowerment show. And it says female empowerment is for everybody. And women can empower men as well as other, women can empower everybody. That's just it. She-Hulk is for everybody. And it really, there's a great article on Nerdist where it's like, there is no MCU, but there should be. And it's like, yeah, because it works for everyone. I wish I could remember her name, the writer's name. She follows me on Twitter. I'm going to regret this, but I have to go find it.
Well, like you were saying, Carolyn, feminism is for everybody. It's not just for females,
Yeah.
it's for everybody. And so it empowers everyone. I thought it was really interesting to like echo off what you were saying. Did anybody understand what happened in this week's episode with when she gets attacked by those random guys?
The wrecking crew?
The wrecking crew.
The wrecking crew. Yeah.
Wrecking crew?
In the comics, there's a group of supervillains, and they're kind of D-listers called the Wrecking Crew. They're mostly played for laughs because they're just pathetic. You know, there's a guy with a crowbar, there's Speedball, there's a bunch of other people, and they're just terrible villains. Usually Thor associated with Thor, hence the Asgardian tools, right? But yeah, those are the guys. Basically, they were hired by a shadowy figure who I have my theories about, and I think we should definitely get into who their boss is. Yeah, to steal her blood, I guess, because whoever their boss is most likely trying to create a Hulk of his own. So I think that's kind of what happened. I mean, she goes public, right? People know who she is. They found her with their crappy Asgardian weapons. They couldn't do anything because she's a Hulk, and you know, we'll find out more, apparently. Yeah. But that's kind of what happened. Sorry, was that the specific question? Did I address that?
Yeah. No, I just was, I was echoing off what Carolyn was saying, just because, you know, when she like finally comes out, you know, she, as brave as she is, I feel like, to me, when I saw that attack, I wasn't sure who they are. But I felt like it was very much like doxing in a sense where people find you in real life.
Yeah.
And I thought that was terrifying. Especially like a woman walking by herself, you know, at home at night or going to her place at night. That was scary. So like watching that, I was just like, oh no. And then she even forgot that she could transform into She-Hulk and handle the situation. So when you were saying that, you know, Carolyn, and how they came out of nowhere. I felt like it was more of that issue, but now coming to fruition. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on, let's be frank, the shittiness of people online and people in general?
Nah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Brush them aside.
I will. So, the one thing that I'm gonna kind of skip past in terms of the recap is kind of the family scenes. Now, granted, I love her dad. I think her dad is awesome. I feel like the family scene was one of those that didn't work for me because it felt very cliche sitcom-y, I think, like Big Bang Theory-ish. You had the stereotypical burnout. I don't know if it was her cousin or her brother or something like that, going like, "You got fired. I got promoted at Best Buy," and then the two weird uncle and aunt combination that's like, oh, you know, we've got a makeover artist. I don't think that one. I didn't really love that scene. I don't know if you guys had anything to chat about for that scene, and you know, if you did, then definitely we can chat about it. But
we saw Chad. I mentioned Chad in the first episode. We saw Chad.
Oh, that's Chad.
Chad was not a genius, but we saw Chad. So Chad exists in the MCU. That's
Chad, but I guess was it Chet? That was
Chet
the genius.
Chad?
I think Chet was the genius, right?
Okay.
Chet Banner, whoever that is. But then this is Chad Banner, clearly not
as cool.
Yeah. But yes. Any other comments on that scene though?
This is where my comment about juggling a little bit too much comes in. I mean, for me, it worked, but it just feels like you were saying, kind of overplaying its hand, kind of like, you know.
Yeah.
It's too sitcom-y, and it kind of works though, because it is a sitcom, but I don't want to say stay in your lane sort of thing, because it feels like derivative, but it's like you can do less. You can do what was that? More with less.
Yeah,
you don't
subtlety.
Yeah. So
subtlety goes a long way.
Yeah. So you can do a whole family thing, but it just, you're taking it a little bit too far with, you know, stereotyping, you know.
Yeah.
The burned out uncle's like, oh, you got fired. Like, you're not supposed to say you got fired. So yeah, we've seen it before. But yeah.
that was my only real criticism about those scenes. Was I think that those scenes didn't work as well as the rest of the episode. But yeah.
It's nice to
Anything
see
else?
the family dynamic, though. It feels grounded. Like everyone else was saying, it's a breath of fresh air because we kind of don't see that kind of silly family sitcom-y, but like it's just too much.
It just didn't work for me. I think the humor was a little too broad, in my opinion. It felt a lot like, you know how sometimes when you watch The Big Bang Theory without a laugh track, you're sort of like, this isn't really landing. Like humor, the jokes aren't landing because they're a little too, I guess dated. Maybe dated is the right word for it. I felt that scene felt really like something ripped out of the 90s in a bad sitcom, and I just did not really respond to that. Like almost like a bad Malcolm in the Middle knockoff, and I was just kind of like, I could do without this scene. If you didn't have this, then it's be it's a minor quibble, but I thought the writing didn't land for me, I think.
Well, tonally it was weird because when you said family stuff, I was thinking Miss Marvel kind of opened and closed the book for me on quirky families in the MCU. Like,
and it was done so well, by the way. The Miss Marvel family dynamic was brilliant.
I would have watched that all the time. I love her whole family. I love her parents. I love that dynamic. So they kind of opened and closed the book for me on quirky families. I'm curious. What if you had to have a family introduction briefly, like what would you want to see?
Something a little bit more realistic. I felt like these were stock characters. The uncle that's weird for the sake of being weird, saying inappropriate things. The burnout, Chad guy. The mom who's a little bit like, oh, I've got these questions for you, blah, 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 blah. We're all going to sit down and have this dinner and it's going to be awkward conversation stuff. I felt like with Ms. Marvel, the family felt real to me. And I think that that's kind of the issue that I take with this. Different shows or otherwise, this is the same universe. And I honestly feel like we should sort of, even though She-Hulk has its own tone, and everything like that, I think we should sort of respect how families are played out or have been played out in this universe, and to resort to kind of stock characters and really low-hanging fruit sort of humor in this one scene. It sort of negates the type of family dynamic and humor that you crafted in something as brilliant as Ms. Marvel. And that's the thing. I think, Maniba felt like a real mom. Her brother felt like a real brother. The love that they share between them, despite their dysfunctions at times, felt like super palpable. And I didn't get that here. I just got, here's this guy and he's quirky and silly, and what's he going to say next?
I feel like the family angle works best when it comes to teenagers. So like Spider-Man with, Uncle Ben and, oh my God, Aunt May, and also Miles Morales with his parents, and then Miss Marvel. So when they're kids, because they're so young, obviously they're still living at home. It's not forced. It comes very natural because that's something that they're dealing from day to day. I feel with She-Hulk, it was, it's so funny because I completely forgot that even happened. Yeah. And that shouldn't be my reaction, right? Because I don't forget her other interactions, but I did forget the family one. It felt like filler in a sense. Like what was the point? And I'm now at the end of episode 3. I'm now looking for, where is Titania? Is her Titania, right?
Yes.
And I'm kind of like, we had her for like a minute, and Marvel was, like I said, breaking the fourth wall. She was like physically out there in the streets of Los Angeles. Jamila.
That was amazing.
Like,
she was spray painting the She-Hulk banners.
I love it, and it's so good, and it's so funny. But so some things fit well like that, and then there's some things that are a bit. I mean, maybe we'll see her family. MCU likes to do this cute little interweave thing where we see something in one episode and it'll tie to something in another episode. So, hopefully we'll see the reason why they implemented that later down the line. But
if they never revisit it, I'll be okay. I will be happy. I actually
absolutely, yeah.
But I would say the dad thing works though, because
dad's good.
He asked the
That's-
right questions though. That's the thing, and it plays well into the MCU and making it feel like a family thing. It's like he expects the daughter to know what Hawkeye does with his leftover arrows,
Sure.
and then he asks the daughter to lift the truck or whatever car he had, carry water. It plays well into it, and then it goes back to the other family, which we don't really care about. So
Yeah.
I think they're just trying to really shed every single aspect of her life as like a woman, and especially an empowered one, because even in the post credits, I don't know if you guys have noticed, which I think is really nice, the animated scenes, like the courtroom scenes. The very last one is a pan out and her phone is on an app that's like Tinder. It's like Matcher or something like, I don't know if you guys noticed that. But if you next time you watch it, then the end credits scene, there's lots of little cute Easter eggs, but that one is very interesting because they're kind of going over like every single thing that she has to deal with, right? May it be family, friends, losing her job, getting another one, harassment online, harassment in real life, dating life, that kind of situation without like forcing it. But in this case with the family one, it felt like a bit forced, like you said. But I know I like read a little bit of the comics, and I know that her dad plays a role in the comics into who she becomes and what happens to her, and her origin story a bit. But maybe that's what they're kind of just like, a nod towards that. But yeah,
and I respect that. I definitely think you need a family, and to explore that aspect of her life, because you can't have a fully fleshed out character without knowing the different roles she's playing, whether it's attorney, whether it's superhero, whether it's daughter, whether it's sibling or cousin or whatever. Execution wise, I just wish that the writing was a little bit more subtle. I thought that they were going for these really easy jokes.
Yeah.
And because of that, it just didn't land for me, because the jokes felt a little too CBS, compared to the rest of what we've seen in the MCU. And I was kind of hoping, it's again a really minor quibble. It's a scene that's instantly forgettable. And it doesn't affect the rest of the episode, which is quite stellar, because once you get into her getting her job, and we cheer for Jen because of that. I think it's easy enough to forget about such a minor scene like that, and all of that. So that's really my big complaint with that portion of this episode, I think. Any other thoughts before we press on to?
I have a question for you guys, actually. Not to take your spot, Mike, but
no, let's do it.
It's that weird with me. The fact that she had to, just speaking about her taking the job, the fact that she had to defend somebody that hurt somebody she loves, a family member, and was forced to do that. And I was just like, and she was successful in doing so, in getting his parole approved, I guess. Don't know law. I'm the complete opposite of a lawyer. I'm a scientist, so I have no idea what's going on.
It's all right. To be fair, Jessica Gao and the crew admit that they're not lawyers either, so they're not really writing that legal part.
Yeah, but like, how do you guys feel about that? I feel like that was very interesting that they like had her defend Emil after like he had like tried to kill her cousin, Bruce Hulk. Yeah. I don't know if you guys picked up on that or if you feel some kind of way about it, but yeah.
Yeah, she addressed that pretty quickly, and that's like, you're forcing her to choose between the person having this new job, like having job security, or defending or protecting her family's integrity or honor, sort of thing. So I felt that was a little weird, but it also plays into the fact that there are these ethical and legal balances or choices that they have to make. So
I took a I'm like an onion. There's layers. I took some classes with a former district attorney when I harbored an idea of going into law school. And first of all, the firm, everything with the firm, if she was like, there is a conflict of interest, like that, she would have had to sign the form and everything. So she had to make that call. And I just can't see the thing that didn't bother me so much. I mean, that didn't bother me. You would expect it but the fact that, number one, the guy wasn't doing it because he wanted to the guy was doing it purely for the drama. And it was just like her coming into what bothered me the most was her coming into the office as She-Hulk, because she was really being judged as her alter ego initially, as opposed to someone else. So by the end of the third episode, I'd argue that she's kind of merged the two and she's really truly accepted herself. But I didn't notice the strangeness of that, because it was really for show. And initially I was like, okay, can they legally do that? It would be different if she was still a district attorney. I think that might have been a problem. Like, I don't think she could have prosecuted a case against Blonsky, but defending him, there definitely is an issue of, like, of connections and stuff.
I think to both your points, Jasmine and Carolyn, GLK and H, they're not coming off as good guys. I honestly think so, right? I mean, between them asking her to defend a guy that literally is one of the villains in the MCU, and also and did try to kill her cousin, and they don't care about that conflict of interest, and also them forcing her to go into work as She-Hulk because it's more of a bigger publicity stunt for them than respecting her for who she is as an attorney. They're really shady at best, amoral if you're going to be polite about it. And granted, I think that's we probably described a lot of lawyers out there. Let's be frank, but at the same time, I mean, it seems like if they're the type of firm that's willing to support the parole of a villain, then maybe they're actually the real villains of this show, and not Titania or not anyone else. I think maybe it is JLK and H. And we don't know this yet or anything like that. I mean, none of this has been revealed, but it speaks at best to one of the biggest conflicts on this show, which is her and her firm and her job, but also her as Jen Walters against the She-Hulk identity. Because, I think, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I think that identity, and that identity conflict between her and Jen Walters and She-Hulk, it's going to come into play in other aspects of her life outside of the professional setting. So I think that it's really inhumane for GLK and H to allow her to defend the guy that almost tried to kill her cousin, but also to use her solely on the basis that she's a public superhero figure, for their own publicity stunts. That's my stance anyways.
When you call the number that they were giving out, when you call the number on the benches, and there's like been a number, one of the characters is like, there's a line in the little voice message that you get where the character goes, "Do it as She-Hulk," and she's like, "But nobody's gonna see it if I'm She-Hulk," and he's like, "No, just do it as She-Hulk." So you hear her getting bigger, and you hear her doing the She-Hulk, and she's like, "Hi, I'm Jen Walters," and she still sounds the same. And it's a real, I don't know, that just, you made me think of that, because it's like, she really is just it's trying. I think you're right. I think it's less about the B and C list villains that she encounters. I think it's less about Emo Monty and his 7 soulmates. Can we talk about the fact that Disney introducing polyamory? But so that was just, I don't know where I was going with that, but that was just, you made me think of that. It's just like, the identity.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a huge conflict in the show, and I think Jen versus JLK and H is going to come into play as well too. Any other thoughts on that? Great points, you guys. Honestly, so she goes to the jail. Obviously, she has to. Oh, sorry. The one thing I do want to point out in all of this, her conversation with Bruce. And the meta Easter egg there of him saying it was ages ago, I'm a completely different person now. And then she turns to the camera and goes, haha. I kind of love that. I just have to call that out because that made me laugh. And no disrespect to Edward Norton, but clearly Mark Ruffalo doesn't show the same pain as you do in regards to fighting Emil Blonsky. But yeah, we got a couple of comments. Baz Lightyear says he or she feels, or they feel that the episodes are super short. They feel shorter than 30 minutes, and that they get that they're trying to go for an Ally McBeal style show, but they go so quick. Amen to that, Baz Lightyear. They are incredibly short. I think that second episode is literally 30 minutes flat, which means that it's the shortest runtime for anything in the MCU. But if you think about it, that's how sitcoms are. These are sitcoms in general are like 22 minutes, whether you're watching Community or Big Bang Theory or The Office, 22-minute episodes, with the exception of the supersized Office episodes, that go by really quickly with 30 minutes with commercials. So yeah, sitcom. And then TJ Buttlag says, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I really hope I didn't put too much emphasis on the butt there. Sorry. But best post-credit scene of all time. Hello, chat. I think that they're referring to something that I wasn't too big of a fan of, but I feel like a lot of people loved it. Should we just get into it? Should we just get into episode 3? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
We've already been doing it. All right. So episode 3 is Blonsky's case. And instantaneously, and I love this, she turns to the camera and goes, I know you're excited to see Wong. Just don't forget which show this belongs to, who the show belongs to. So I love that. We know that we're getting Wong. You got Nikki searching LinkedIn for Wong's profile, and apparently he worked at Target for 9 years before becoming the Sorcerer Supreme.
My boy, the target was strong between us. I love Doctor Strange, but I knew I loved Wong, and I was just like, I sense it. The working for the dog, working for Bullseye. I love that.
Yeah, his years at Target prepared him to be the librarian at Camartage.
Not just any Target, but the Target in Camartage.
That's right, the Target in
Yes.
Camartage.
I wanna go there. I'm gonna go back and work for Target and go to that Target.
Which was amazing. Jen turns to us and says, this is not going to be a cameo of the week show, even though we've had a cameo every week, which I thought was funny. And yes, we get the reveal of Emil Blonsky's 7 soulmates, as you pointed out, Carolyn, which was funny as hell. And we get his trial, which goes actually really, really well. And with that trial, by the way, we get the reveal that the footage that we saw in Macau when he fought Abomination ended up leaking, half a year later or a year later. And for those wondering about the timeline, by the way, She-Hulk happens after that post-credit scene in Shang-Chi. So just so you guys know, there's no discrepancy there. The footage was just released very, very late after the events of Shang-Chi. So there's no, if you're wondering why Hulk's arm is busted in the post-credit scene of Shang-Chi, but not busted here because he heals it and now he's in space, it's because this takes place a long time after Shang-Chi and the footage just happened to leak. So the timeline is preserved for those sticklers out there like myself who want the MCU timeline to be preserved. But the whole trial goes well. Wong admits to releasing Fugitive and then pieces out right after.
You're in trouble too. So yeah. It's like, nope, I'm getting out.
What did you guys think of all of this? The Wong subplot, Blonsky, everything. Just let's go nuts. Who wants to go?
Actually, I have a question for you guys.
Please.
Wong says, don't worry, I'm not gonna cast the spell for people to forget.
Yes.
And I'm just like, wait, does Wong still know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, or what's going on with?
So they know the events of No Way Home. They just don't know who Spider-Man is. The events, it doesn't negate everything that they did. It just negates who Peter is.
Spider-Man is, yeah.
Yes, the identity.
Wasn't there a thing that they mentioned in No Way Home where they'd done it before, but it was with a much smaller group? I seem to remember
that
there was.
It was a party that.
Yeah.
It was a party that nobody wants to remember.
Party or something.
Yeah, because it was a very awkward night for Stephen Strange and Wong, apparently. I'm very curious now about what happened at that party.
I hope we get it as a bonus scene.
That would be amazing.
The
That'd be amazing.
17 extra minutes of footage.
If that literally was the plot of Multiverse of Madness, just 2 hours about this awkward party and the morning after, I think it would have been amazing. They could do it like The Hangover. Oh my God, like Doctor Strange and The Hangover. And then
I hope Kevin Feige is watching now.
Yes.
Kevin, please, Doctor Strange.
If you're watching this,
yeah,
Hangover style.
Just started out
We're pitching
with
out
Wong,
ideas here.
yeah, like Wong on the hotel room floor,
Yes.
and then
Tiger
getting
Clea and have Charlize Theron reprise as a drunk Clea. Basically.
Oh, it's such a wasted opportunity. It could take place before Christine's wedding because Steven could call Christine and go, Christine, we fucked up, and then like just start the whole movie from there. I honestly think that we need to write this, guys. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, they did do it. It was a throwaway joke, but it's canon. It happened. They erased people's memories. Those sorcerers. But yeah. Any other questions or thoughts? Let's have at it.
Sending people to the shadow dimension or to the mirror dimension. It's such I love the disconnect between the ideal hero and between like the superhero mindset, which is so simple, and then the actual legal mindset. We talked about it in a serious way, but honestly, it's just like, oh, what are you gonna do with the bad guy? We're gonna send him to the shadow dimension. What's in the shadow dimension?
It's like Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
Where is he going? What's gonna happen to it?
It's just like, it's where, and I would love for them to address that. Imagine them addressing that in like a fourth wall scene where it's like she says it and it's like, oh, we're going to go to the shadow dimension. She's like, you guys really think that would work? Sending people to a dimension of shadows or a dimension of how does what? I don't understand. And it's like, just having her acknowledge that the absurdity of us living in 1218 versus them living in 616, and they're not 616. This is M199.
109999. Yeah.
It's not. I refuse.
999,
I refuse.
yes.
I'm listening to Amani.
Yeah, I'm listening to Iman Vellani as well.
I think what's interesting is dang, I lost my thought completely. Come back to me.
Did it have to do with Wong? Or
it did.
Yeah. Blonsky, Wong. I'm trying to like.
Oh yeah. So when Wong, thank you. You got it. Good job. So when he said, "Oh, I had to borrow him to see the strongest, contender or whatever to test his powers out at," I thought that was very interesting, and also like, I don't know if he said that during the trial, because when he said that to when he said it to She-Hulk, and I was just like, but wait, if he says this during the trial, during his parole hearing, they would have heard strongest, opposition. So they would have, I was like, I hope he doesn't say that, because I feel like that's tying into or foreshadowing that he is going to be their enemy, perhaps. And again, I haven't read She-Hulk comics, so I don't know if he's done and rehabilitated and he's good and he's going to go live with his other
Blonsky
in a commune, right?
Yeah. I don't buy it. I think I don't think this is the last we've seen of the Abomination, despite the fact that at the end of this, the agreement is that he doesn't use his powers, right?
Right.
He wears an inhibitor too, right? That's what I heard.
I think so.
Yeah.
But he needs to wear an inhibitor at all times. Yeah.
But there was a reveal at San Diego Comic-Con regarding a certain movie that's going to be at the end of Phase 5 that makes me think that we have not seen the last of Emil Blonsky as the Abomination, and that film is called The Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would behoove Marvel if they're going to create their own version of the Suicide Squad. I mean, like it's been in the comics. The Thunderbolts were a group of superheroes that saved the world, but then what people didn't realize was that these were actually supervillains that were posing as superheroes to try and get their, make their way, get their way. It was led by Baron Zemo, who we know is amazing in this universe. We love Daniel Bruhl, and we want to see more of Zemo. I think there's a couple of villains that are unaccounted for throughout this universe, namely Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Not really a villain, but an anti-hero, Yelena Belova. And I think Emil Blonsky is also another one that will probably potentially factor into all this. So again, I have a theory that he's not going to be good forever, and we have not seen the last of the Abomination. But
I can't believe again that they introduced this show has been groundbreaking, both in terms of strong female characters, both in terms of making gender feel comfortable, but also in terms of just things that I never expected to see in Disney. Because on the one hand, you have the acknowledgement that Captain America's coitus history, and you have the acknowledgement that Blonsky is, and that's the first place my mind jumps to, because I'm probably ancient and I'm awful. And I'm like, he's living with 7 people. The man's got a harem. I mean, like, out of all, and I like that too, though. I really, as much grief as I'm giving it, I like the idea that you have, because it's such a it's such a trope of like true crime fans, and they want to marry like a serial killer. And there's like all these people that'll like write like Ted Bundy, or they'll be like, "You're so hot. I love you so much, Abomination. You know, I see through you, and you're beautiful. You know, you're beautiful, and I want to heal you," and all this other stuff. And I think you're right, and I think you're right, Mike. And I think the biggest clue is that even if you have 7 of those people, like honestly, picking 7 of them and refusing to pick like just one, that says you want something out of it. So I gotta wonder, like, you know, is he just using all of these 7 people who are clearly lacking in emotional maturity and security? Not to say that people don't deserve caring. You know, if you feel that way and you feel that connection, more power to you. Lord knows I do sometimes think of, like, you know, redemptive issues and things like that. And that was something else too, like her whole comment about redemption. I'm really interested to hear what people think about the idea of redeeming villains in the MCU.
Oh, you mean where she says that the idea of America is built on reform, I guess, something like that, where she's trying to justify taking the case with Bruce?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thoughts there? Without getting super political. Yeah.
Okay, if we're going by, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I just think She-Hulk, again, when I say she breaks the fourth wall, it's not simply just talking to the audience directly, but there's a lot of things they're breaking, and they did this in Miss Marvel as well. They do very subtle hints as to, like, discuss the political situation in the United States, you know, discuss what women have to deal with online and in real life, and their harassment and what happens. They're just hitting it out of the ballpark. They're very subtle. They're not heavy hits, right? So it'll be a comment here or there, but if somebody will pick it up and be like, this is what they meant by that, you know? And I like how they leave it up to us, the viewers, to understand and interpret what they mean by it. And I feel like whoever these show writers are knocking it way out of the park, because little hints like this it makes a big difference, right? That they recognize, like, hey, this is, you know, I know Marvel, it's Disney, it's fantasy, but it is based off the real world. And so I do like how they do that. I don't know if it's in the comics, but they were all wearing the 7 ladies were all wearing white dresses and a green crown, and it felt very cult-like. I'm not sure if that's just a reflection off of, like you said, major serial killers having fan bases. Like one of the most infamous one would be, I think, was it Charles Manson had but I love my true crime, so I definitely I never want to marry somebody like that. Not like that. I'll listen to the podcasts, but that's it. That's the end of the rope for me. But yeah, so I thought that was very interesting, and a thing that they brought in. It's funny because when he did turn into Abomination, I don't know if you saw the girls' reactions, but they were kind of like swooning, and that was really funny as well. It was those little comical things here and there that's just hilarious. But yeah.
I'll add something. I think this was in the beginning of this episode. little comical, but also relatable. Not relatable, but very realistic. It's about how I think they were interviewing her right during the news, like, oh, what's it like to be She-Hulk? And like, you're losing focus, like, because we're talking about feminism right now. You're losing focus on who she is and what she's about and what she stands for. And then when you get to that point, they switch it to like, oh, she's going to talk about her diet and exercise and like methods. Like, what's going on here? But this is also very typical of news media right now. It's
Yeah.
You can
Yeah,
hear her
so-
as the camera's not even
She's like-
on her. She's like, wait, what?
Wait, what?
yeah, exactly. It's like, wait, what?
It was
So-
very funny. I love that part.
It's very topical, and it's like, yeah, it's in the now. It's like, this is what news. They just care about these puff pieces and these clickbait kind of articles sort of things.
Yeah.
So,
they don't care about her as a real person, which is kind of
no.
yeah, it's very similar to her law firm too. They don't care about her as a real person, which is kind of
Of course
you
not.
know.
That's why she has to be constantly transformed when she's representing. Now that we're on episode 3, well, how do you guys feel about? And I think I actually noticed it finally in this episode, the CGI. I know it's a constant discussion and points for people. You already like, oh, not this.
The CGI is, here's the thing. I don't expect CGI to be groundbreaking on TV shows. There's a difference between movie budgets of 200 million plus and then budgets of literally of sitcoms. We can't anticipate or hold our expectations for She-Hulk to be on par with something like Avengers Endgame. Because it's just simply not the same situations in terms of budget and in terms of support from the studio. So yeah, the CGI is not great, but at the same time, we've seen 3 episodes in what She-Hulk looks like. I mean, at this point, we're either in it or out. And if the visual effects are that distracting for you, you should have been out by the first episode, because this is what the show is, guys. I mean, roll with it. That's my take. Anyone else? Sorry.
I'll say this: my eyes have adjusted to it, so I'm fine with it now. It took a while. Like, yeah, it's bad, but I once every new episode, it's like, what, it's fine. I don't see it anymore because I'm kind of blinded to the fact that it is what it is, sort of thing. So
in the comics, she can't, at least for my reading, and I could be very wrong. For the longest time, I don't think she can change back. But I could be wrong. But so I think that while you're kind of forced to get used to it, it didn't really bother me. I made the allowance in my head, knowing that when you see her, she has to be 7 feet tall, she has to be large, she has to be green, and she's gonna probably stick that way, because most incarnations that at least I can recall in my head haven't had her like shift back into Jen Walters often. It wasn't until the most recent comic, actually, that I think she actually did. So I've never seen the issue with the CGI, and I can't tell if that makes me a bad critic or if that just makes me, ignorant as far as
I mean, it's just, hey,
yeah, if it doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother you. I think that there's tolerance level there. I think that a lot of the times the tolerance level for people who try to put too much stock into this, they're legitimately looking for ways to blow up the show. And I don't think that that's fair to the show either. I mean, be understanding and sympathetic of the fact that this isn't the one thing, if I may, that does bother me about the visual effects is I actually think Bruce looks great. I actually think he looks on par with the way and consistent with the way that he's looked in the different iterations of the Hulk that we've seen. I actually think the Abomination looks pretty consistent as well with what we saw in Shang-Chi. The one thing that I don't really like is that it seems like they put a lot more effort and time into doing those 2 characters than they really did the central character that's carrying the show, which is Jen Walters' She-Hulk. And I kind of wish that maybe they shifted things a bit. I understand for the sake of consistency and this is a franchise where we've seen these characters before, that you have to be consistent with the looks that you've seen in other movies, and She-Hulk is brand new to this universe and this show. But she is the central figure in the show, guys. So wish that they put in a little bit more into her character. But with everything going on with visual effects crews, how hard they're being worked on, how little they're getting paid, I also can understand the argument for why they didn't put as much time and effort into something that's going to be in every frame of a show. And I sympathize with the plight of those crews. I really hope that this show didn't drive them to madness or to quit the industry, because I know that that's going around a lot. I know that Marvel can be pretty brutal because they've got so many things going on. But for what it's worth, your work is not bothering me at all. I think that it's, the show's fine. It's working to support the show, and I'm okay with it. I'm happy with it all, so.
Can I take a moment to ask the panel a question real quick? What do you guys think? I mean, I say this as a larger individual, and I know it's something that's been discussed and it was briefly touched on, and a lot of people are kind of uncomfortable. We're mentioned it in passing. What do you guys think of her size? Because everyone was like, you kind of want to see her bigger, you kind of want to see her, more muscly. In the comics that I feel like they're pulling a lot from, like the 80s comics, she's definitely more of a very, very feminine, very svelte figure. But I'm just curious to hear what people think, because I've heard both opinions and I've never had an opportunity to have even a remotely nuanced discussion with someone about it.
Anyone want to take this? I have thoughts, but
I'm team buff woman always. I just feel like we need that diversity, especially. I definitely remember when She-Hulk was announced, as well as Thor Love and Thunder. They were kind of announced at the same time. So I remember that happening, and I was like, well, I hope we get like whoever plays these characters, because they didn't announce anything yet. They just said like, oh, those are what's coming, that we get buff women. And so far I did see Natalie Portman, definitely, like you could see it in her arms, as well as Tessa Thompson, Valkyrie, Tatiana Maslany, I think her last name is. I think she is providing a different type of diverse. I've never seen anybody with short curly hair in the MCU, so I do like it's similar to my own hair, so I thought that was really important that we don't have like this straight hair, blonde, red, brunette. Like it's a little different texture, and I was hoping to see a little more, again, more muscle, and so I'm really hoping for bigger, thicker woman. I think the MCU is warming up to that, because you could see that slow transition, because look at the backlash you're getting now just for having a female superhero main title screen. It's all her, so they're already receiving enough backlash. So I think they're just like gradually going that direction, instead of just giving us like, okay, here it is, this is exactly what she buff, thick. But then it also shows, I really liked how in the very first episode, which we've already discussed, but when she was working out alongside Bruce, that she was like beasting him, literally, like she was surpassing him in so many ways, and I enjoyed it. I was like, okay, so she is strength, doesn't have to be super muscular, you could be lean and be strong. But to what you're saying, I do hope there's a little more body diversity in the future. I like the fact that she's tall. I think that's amazing. That's gorgeous. That's awesome. However, they did, like you were saying about the CGI, they did smooth out her skin heavily, and she does look a lot more leaner than, thicker. And I was hoping for more of that. But yeah, I'm team thick woman. So like, give it to me, Marvel. Like, I'm waiting for it. I want it, and I'm asking for it. Hopefully we get it. But I could see them slowly transitioning away from, sexy Black Widow, to obviously more down to earth Camilla, who's a teenager. We Captain Marvel, so that's a little more, it's not feminine, or overtly feminine. The men hate that. And going into She-Hulk next, but being green and large. So I think we're getting there. Hopefully we get there a little faster. But yeah.
I have to agree. I just I hope to see more of this body diversity. Like you said, I think it was kind of a missed opportunity with America Chavez, because we've all seen how her body shape and everything, and how she represents, like Jasmin said, the big and kind of thick girls. So I think that was kind of a missed opportunity, but what can you do? It's already done. But yeah, I'm just hoping for more body diversity, because it's just representation matters, and we want to see ourselves in these characters. So
I I'm all for the representation angle. I definitely think that, you know, mainstream media, especially in a franchise as big as Marvel, that's about these larger than life characters, deserves to have these larger than life heroes. That being said, I'll say this: main, you know, my main criteria for a character for any superhero series is this: if you look like the character, I'm happy. And in the comics, Jen is 6'7". You know, she looks like She-Hulk. You know, that's Tatiana's version of She-Hulk is 6'7" and looks like She-Hulk. I was happy with it. I was like, this looks like She-Hulk to me. You know, I wish that you put a little bit more into the CGI of just like her face, so it looks a little bit more like real flesh and real texture. But overall, I mean, if you look like She-Hulk and you're the exact size that She-Hulk's been documented to be in the comics, mazel tov, you did your job. Great, you know. So that's just me as a comic book fan, though. I just like accuracy.
I agree. I just one of the things that I found that I really like about She-Hulk is that they're starting, like Yasmin said, they're starting to lean more towards the body diversity aspects of it, and I think that you know, in the grand scheme, in the grand hierarchy of things I want to see that make people, you know, in terms of representation, that's really low, but it's still nice to see. Like, there's a lot more that I would really that I'd like to see them to see them do. But it was a nice thing to see, and I honestly like how she looks. I just think that I know that it was a topic of discussion, and initially it was one of those topics of discussion that came out before the show, and it's size issues and stuff have happened. That's been a topic of discussion in the MCU, and I want to really, really quickly circle back to something that Michael said about how Jen's whole focus is on like her diet and her exercise routine, and everybody else focuses on that. I remember an interview a while back where there were people who were asking Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans about their acting, and then they were asking Scarlett Johansson about her workout routines. Mm-hmm. So it's like Marvel, they've done this before, and finally Chris Evans, I don't know if you remember if it was Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr. who were looking at her like, they were looking at her like, well, you know, we'll answer those questions too. Why aren't you asking her about her acting? Yeah. And I wish that Mark Ruffalo would come out more in defense of Jennifer Walters on all these fronts rather than just a joke tweet.
Yeah, good call out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that we're getting a little bit over time. I think there were two aspects of this episode, the third episode, that I did think that we'd be doing a disservice to the episode if we didn't address them. I'm going to save the most juicy for last. But before we get to that, any thoughts on the Asgardian elf Megan Thee Stallion subplot? We're building to something here, people, by the way. But the Asgardian elf aspect of the episode, any thoughts on that?
Dennis is a dumbass. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah. And definitely hilarious.
It plays into the whole thing, but yeah, it just, yeah.
Yeah.
Come on. Total
it had me paranoid throughout the episode. I'm just like, is that the elf now? Is that a real person? I'm like, who is that? Like, and so it was pretty funny. I thought it was an interesting, cute little twist. Again, not sure how it plays out in the comics, but I'm sure it plays a role. But we just saw we saw like 3 Asgardian references in one episode with the weapons from the crew, and towards the end, the elf. And then when the elf was trying to give out, I think it was Heimdall's speech. They're like, oh, no Thor speech, no.
Yeah, no inspiring.
Yeah, exactly.
Speeches work, or
it doesn't
here or something like that.
Yeah,
exactly. Which I thought was hilarious because again, it's like bringing everything down to earth. It's just like, yes, we know superheroes exist. Yeah, and they exist in our universe, but no, you don't get to use his speech. Like, you don't get to use his speech it
doesn't count in a court of law.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say that some of those scenes as well were much like the family scene. I think there was a little bit of broad humor there that didn't land for me, particularly when the elf was impersonating the judge and running around and, you know, laughing and stuff like that. I was like, this is it's a little, it doesn't really land for me. I will say that when She-Hulk is or when Jen is laughing in Dennis's face because he thought that he was freaking dating the real Megan Thee Stallion, that sent me into hysterics because that was just what
was
an idiot.
the car? What was like? You thought Megan Thee Stallion would drive a kind of a car? It's like, oh my god.
Testimony is her going like, no, he is that much of a sociopath.
No, that I like that. That also highlights the misogyny and everything because he was like, I am so cool and everything. I'm the narcissist. No, he didn't say he was a narcissist, but he
is.
He implied it.
He implied it. Yeah, he does all these typical things, and then Jen calls him out on it. It's like this is the show I like. This is the show I'm looking for. So.
And you can't even dispute that because if you do it, F's your case up too.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god, that was great. Sticking it to that jackass.
And Pew goes to her for help. It's like Pew, right? It's a Pug. Pug's his name.
Pug, yeah.
Pug. So Pug's like, can you go up and say that? She's like, oh my gosh, that was perfect.
With pleasure, Pug. I mean, why wouldn't you just want to wreck that jackass? Any more that he wrecked himself when he dated an Asgardian elf and she stole all of his money. Props to her, by the way, for working it. That was a good con on her part. The Asgardian
175K. That was nice. Gosh.
He's like, whoa, not 200,000. I'm not crazy. 175K. Dumbass. Oh my god. But it does lead into a cameo of sorts, which made headlines. Yeah, because Megan Thee Stallion is officially canon in the MCU and led into a somewhat heated, controversial post-credit scene. And it's the smallest scene in the world, guys. I mean, I know that I had issues with it too. I'm going to openly admit that I wasn't a fan of it, but it's a post-credit issue. I mean, don't let it destroy an entire episode of television just because of that. But let's call it Twerkgate 2022. Twerkgate 2022, where we have a scene where Jen Walters as She-Hulk is twerking with Megan Thee Stallion at the end of that scene, much to the chagrin of many a whiner, myself included, and much to the joy of a lot of folks who love that scene. Going to put it out there because I know that I'm going to get shot in the head for this, but what did everyone else think of this scene? Fans, yes or no, of She-Hulk twerking?
Short answer, yes. I think it needs that kind of break to be silly, be funny, and you know what? It's a sitcom show. We're going to do something, though it feels a little dated, but it made me laugh. I mean, if you're going to invite Megan Thee Stallion, you might as well go all the way with it. You don't go halfway. So,
Jasmine or Carolyn? Yeah,
I don't. No, Yasmin, I'm thinking for a moment. I have deep thoughts.
So if you, I'm not yes or no. I'm a sure. It's a bonus scene. It definitely threw me off. Like I knew Meg Thee Stallion was going to be in it because I did see the tweets a while ago. Meg Thee Stallion is a huge nerd, though. If anybody deserves that spotlight, she is well deserving of it. She loves anime, loves comics. She's very young at heart, and exactly what Michael was saying. Like we need, we don't want to fall into the, and I love her. Don't get me wrong, but we don't want to follow into the Brie Larson Captain Marvel, where she was like stern, hard ass. We do want to see that comical side to Jen Walters, right? And so I do think it's fine. It's a bonus scene. It's not going to hurt anybody, and I don't think any of the MCU Disney Plus shows, unless I'm this sick, had bonus scenes at the end of every episode. So, I'm here for it. And yeah, remember when the comments where I was saying, what do we think about the CGI? Obviously, this was clipped and memed and posted so many times over social media, which Marvel knows what they're doing because it got people attention. It got their attention. It got people talking, buzzing about it. People are going to go watch it now. So it's very smart for them to do it. But Yeah, the CGI was very apparent with that one. Again, a bonus scene, so they probably were not putting their
They weren't, yeah.
blowing the budget.
They didn't care that much about it.
A 5 second twerk scene, but
Yeah.
you know, yeah, but like people, you know, like TJ was saying, there's been plenty of people dancing through the MCU. I mean, we had Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man, that iconic busting out, you know, with
which I hate, by the way. I hated that scene.
That one I hate. I'll say
I
that.
hate that scene. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. We've had iconic dancing, you know, where we've had them just kind of being silly and goofy and you know, it's okay, I guess. Like, you know, again, like I said, I'm looking for more Titania. Like we only got like a minute of her, not even like 10-15 seconds. So it's like I'm looking more for that kind of stuff, but it doesn't really hurt. Again, I'm gonna stick to a not yes or no, but a sure, why not.
I thought it was ridiculous, and I am against it. Do you know why I'm against it? It was almost as silly as having Bruce Campbell from Evil Dead punch himself over and over again in the face, all the way through to the last part of Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. It was just as that was almost as silly as if something like that happened. Oh wait, that did happen.
So go ahead, please. Sorry, I cut you off.
Well, no, I was just gonna say it's everything that Jasmin said. You know, this series is about. I mean, if you really break it down, this series is about people who are, you know, wearing spandex, running around, throwing dinner plates, and turning into monsters, and jumping on things and punching stuff, and it's done for a bunch of people who, you know, are finally in the limelight, but also spent a good portion of time, you know, being the joke. And it's like, okay, you know, it's okay to turn back to these jokey things. It's like I said when we discussed the first episode, like these books are not high literature. Like we're not looking at Dickens. So I thought that it was, you know, I thought it was just as silly and just as ridiculous as having Bruce Campbell punch himself in the face over and over again, or having Tobey Maguire dance ridiculously, or having Baron Zemo dance ridiculously. And I think a lot of people are just proving that they are less than competent men and competent human beings.
So
I think as well, like you have to, and you just reminded me of another scene, Carolyn, of in No Way Home, where Andrew Garfield, or Spider-Man 3, I don't know how he referring to himself as Spider-Man 3, even though he's technically Spider-Man 2, but okay. But he like was having a whole back and forth with Ned's grandma in Tagalog, and while you and I might not care, I know my Filipino friends ate that up. They loved it. They were obsessed, and I'm happy for. I thought it was funny. Did I have any idea what was going on? Absolutely none. I don't understand Tagalog, but the fact that people felt really good about it, it hit a certain audience, and then you know, it's. I feel like this extra bonus scene that was, you know, not even a minute long, maybe, but I feel like that is going to hit a certain audience too. And again, a lot of things are done for publicity and attention, and I feel like that was definitely, if that was what they were going with, they got their results. And so
may I approach the bench in defense of myself, actually, because I am a horrible man baby that did whine about the scene. I'm going to flat out tell everyone watching that I went on Twitter, I called it peak cringe. I do stand by it. I'm going to be honest. And if I may, I'd love to defend myself. This definitely has nothing to do. The reason I dislike it has nothing to do with whether this is a female-led or female-driven show. You know, it's more to do with the scene itself and the idea that I'm going to give you guys an example. I have worked in digital marketing before. I have been in rooms with people, and they've tried to promote. There are these people in their 40s and 50s trying to reach out to kids and promote their content by having animated characters do, at the time, the Whip Nene was very popular. So they were like, we should do something and have these characters do the Whip Nene because it'll appeal to the younger audience. And it ended up becoming really bad, really cheesy, and really transparent pandering from people who are out of their depth and out of their league in terms of how to appeal to this crowd. By picking the one TikTok trend that they thought would be speak to the youth of America, even though they have no idea what they're talking about and what they're doing, and trying to, put their characters to do this thing to appeal to kids. It just felt very out of touch. And I think, honestly, apropos of that, I felt like this scene felt like that too, where you had scenes like Bruce Campbell punching himself or Zemo dancing and everything like that. None of that felt like transparent pandering to a specific demographic. By taking a scene like this, having her do the latest dance craze with one of the most hip and cool, rappers out there today that kids will recognize, it really did feel like transparent pandering. And in 14 years of the MCU, I don't think they've ever had to rely on that sort of, that sort of pandering to this demographic before. So it really bothered me because it really felt like a bunch of old people going into a room and going, we should have her twerk because that's what kids love these days. They're going to love it. And to me, it didn't work in the same way that Zemo dancing did. That was in the context of them being in a nightclub in Madripoor and him just like being a villain that's kind of mocking his captors at the time. I guess Bucky and Falcon captured him, or Sam Raimi punching himself because he's an obstacle that they have to get past, and Doctor Strange just punishes him, whatever. It's within the realm of possibility for Doctor Strange to do that, or Star-Lord doing a dance off to distract Ronan from doing that. None of them were trying to do all this stuff to try and be cool or hip or anything like that, and I felt like
people in the MCU that have danced, I feel like you're because I completely forgot about some of those, and Mike's like he has a hit list. He's like, this character did this dance in this movie, in this episode.
and the context matters, I think, and the context of what they're trying to do definitely matters, versus I don't think if this scene was anything else, it could have been anything else, and I don't think it wouldn't have been as ridiculous, I think, as what they did. And there's nothing in any of these past couple of episodes that would indicate that She-Hulk is going to twerk at any point in this series, and then you kind of just throw it in there and insert it.
That's her superpower. It's the thunder twerk.
Oh my gosh! I think
I've seen her like throwing it back, twerking, and like it's like pushing the Hulk aside for the backwards. Yeah. So I think it's for the memes. I can see what you're saying though, Mike. Like I do see where it's just like, do we need this? Like, was that necessary?
And we are getting comments in here about Twerkgate 2022. So this is from TJ Buttlag again, who definitely, I understand your stances, by the way. He called out, they called out, the Zemo cut for sure, which, I kind of explained my stance on that, as well as, the Maguire dancing, which I also hated, for the record. And I thought that was the death of that franchise, was Tobey Maguire going down the street doing this and then swinging on the chandeliers to spite Mary Jane in that horrible third installment of the Spider-Man franchise. And then you did ask a valid question. If the twerk is cringe, what is your stance on Thor making a he's right behind me joke? Isn't he in Love and Thunder? I understand where you're coming from. A lot of the humor in Love and Thunder doesn't work. A lot of it is cringeworthy as well. However, the reason that I actually prefer Love and Thunder to, let's say, the twerk scene here is because it's very on brand with Taika Waititi as a filmmaker. I mean, like, he's got this sort of, it's the difference between Monty Python humor and then old people trying to make a twerk happen in a show. The Monty Python brand and humor, you expect Monty Python type humor to happen in the movie. So if Taika Waititi's bag is to kind of do the absurdist type of humor that we see in, let's say, Monty Python, and it was in Ragnarok and it's now in Love and Thunder, it's expected. I think we get that this is going to happen with Love and Thunder. Again, in the entirety of the She-Hulk series so far, there's nothing there that indicates that this is a character or a style that is predicated on the need for Megan Thee Stallion to make a cameo appearance and for She-Hulk to twerk. You could easily take that out and put something else in as a post-credit scene. and have it work just as validly. But to me, that's why I'm not a huge fan of this. That's why I can tolerate some of the cheese from Love and Thunder and some of these other, MCU episodes. The context, the storyline, the vision behind it kind of matters. And I felt like this was off brand for the show so far. And also a very pandering to the TikTok generation, Gen Zers, if I may, which is why I wasn't a fan. I'm sorry, guys. Hopefully it doesn't offend anyone. I know that a lot of people were offended either way, whether you liked the twerk or you hated the twerk. It's a no-win Kobayashi Maru situation. But if it did offend anyone out there, and me standing on my soapbox and defending it offended anyone, deeply apologetic. Just being true to me. That's who I am. I apologize. Any thoughts on that? I want to give everyone a chance to respond, since I just kind of went on for like 10 minutes there. I'm sorry.
Tell us how you really feel, Mike.
Yeah.
How did this scene really affect
I didn't get that. What happened now? I was sleeping.
Mike, I have
work that sent waves throughout the MCU.
And
sorry, go ahead,
like Thanos snap waves, it just like pulsating right.
Twerk waves.
Yeah.
I have a bone to pick with you, Mike. Actually, you know what?
Yes,
I
please.
heard your soapbox, and I've heard your soapbox. I've heard your issues. I want to know why you're not arguing for Megan Thee Stallion to have an actual part in the MCU, because when I first heard she was joining it, that was what I was hoping. I was hoping she'd have an actual character to play.
No, I'm actually glad she's not. She's not an actress. So
you could make the jump. You could make the jump into. She wouldn't be the first person to have done it. I would have been happy for you to do it.
I actually, and forgive me, I'm kind of old school this way. I like letting people into acting that have had some experience or proven themselves as actors. I think that's the whole reason Tatiana Maslany works as She-Hulk, is because we know she's a damn capable, great actress. I think that it's also the reason that Benedict Cumberbatch works as Stephen Strange, because we know he's a damn awesome, wonderful actor. I don't know if Megan Thee Stallion has any acting experience, and I don't think that it makes sense for a casting director to cast someone into a Marvel movie just because they actually are a flavor of the month. I'm not calling her a flavor of the month, by the way, for all the Megan Thee Stallion fans, or because she's popular. Somebody shouldn't get a job because they're popular or because they're, well known as a singer. They should get a job as an actor because they can prove themselves as an actor. And it's one thing for them to audition her for a role, and if she's amazing and succeeds at that role, give her the job then. But only then would I be okay with somebody like Megan Thee Stallion getting a legitimate acting credit in the MCU if she's proven her worth as an actress, which I'm not behind the scenes. I'm not Sarah Halley Finn, who's a genius, by the way. I don't know what Megan Thee Stallion's acting ability is, but until I actually see something that proves to me that she can act and pull off a role, and unfortunately this cameo doesn't count, I wouldn't want to give her a legitimately huge role in the MCU. Prove to me that you can act, be an actor, and then you can get the part. Don't just get the part because you're famous.
What if, and this just occurred to me, what if this was like another way of them breaking the fourth wall, like them bringing in something that is, like you said, not like flavor of the month. We get what you mean by that,
Yeah.
And that is currently hot and trendy at the moment. And like you said, it's not going to age well, or it might be iconic and age excellently. I mean, look at, the Carlton dance from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like ageless.
That's because it was self-mocking. We did it at the expense of Carlton, not, and it's right. Affectionate to us because we love the character. So it's
so there's a chance it could age well. There's a high chance it won't, because of how trendy it is. But maybe this is them being like, hey, like, this is us breaking the fourth wall again, and being relevant to what's happening right now. And social media is playing a heavy part in the show. Like we saw it multiple times in this episode where we saw YouTube, LinkedIn, comments on some sort of social media platform, looks like maybe Twitter. So maybe this is just another way of them kind of doing it. TikTok was on Miss Marvel. They were making TikToks in Miss Marvel. So I feel like, I mean, I guess like all of us here, I'm going to assume, I really hate going down this path, but we're all millennials, I'm assuming, and I feel like we came in this cross section in our life where we're like, this doesn't really sit right with me, but maybe Gen Z is eating this up. I know as hell boomers and they're looking at this like, what? They're like you, Mike. They're yelling at the clouds, they're yelling in the sky, like, why are you twerking on my MCU show?
Why? I'm being a total gatekeeper here, by the way.
No,
guys.
it's totally fine. It was I watched the episode and I thought it was weird. I like, that was my first thing. I was like,
out of place, right? I mean, I can't be the only one that thinks it was out of place.
Yeah, no, I just thought it was very oddly like it didn't really fit, it was oddly placed, but and it wasn't in a charming way like Dino and dancing in a nightclub is, or Star-Lord, where that was like our introduction to him. And I felt like a bit forced maybe, but
yes,
again, I'm okay with it. Like that was my first reaction, so I totally get where you're coming from, and I totally get where Carolyn's coming from, and I'm not 100% behind the idea of twerking because I think it's funny. I think it's just a 2-bit throwaway scene. I mean, I'm on the sure path. I think if I had to pick a big reason why, I'd say that I would like to see. I agree with Mike to a point, but again, I think we're missing what it meant to like Gen Z kids, and I actually think you're onto something, Jasmin. I think that was breaking the fourth wall. I think that because it reminded me of those like 90s Coke ads where it's like you had a guest star, like those Pepsi ads, like you'd be walking around and you'd have a like the Mean Joe Green ad, and then suddenly there's Megan Thee Stallion walking out, like. That made me now that you've said that, honestly, that makes more sense to me. And then when she said like, I will die for you, and Meg was like, take it down a notch, that's something that people say now. Like that's what people like stands on Twitter be like, I will die for you. Like I say that about like my favorite dogs. Like,
I mean, I feel like people have been
this pug.
People have been saying that for, it's a common idiom, right? Yeah. Like regardless of the generation. That part I didn't have that much of a problem with. Her signing Megan Thee Stallion as a client as well, I didn't have a problem with. It's just the twerking.
Oh boy.
Well, yeah.
Mike's gonna write a letter to Kevin Feige right now. Dear Kevin.
Strongly worded letters.
Episode 3. I'm totally kidding. Your opinion is incredibly valid. I'm valid. We got the situation.
we got a couple comments here about me probably never going to host the show again. No, I'm kidding.
No.
I think her cameo being there, this is TJ, by the way. I think her cameo being there is fine because it's entirely plausible, not only in the show, but the comics that Jen would like her, especially in the 1990s. She was very femme, Beastie Boys energy, and that's very Meg. Like Jasmin said it as well. It fits with Jen. It's not like Meg threw it back with Wanda at the end of Multiverse of Madness. Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, again, I have no problem with the cameo, the appearance of Megan Thee Stallion as in general. It does seem like, I mean, from a corporate level, don't you think that for TJ, don't you think that it just screams, we're going to shoehorn this in there because we want people to talk about it? I mean, it seems transparent to me. And then Baz Lightyear says, wasn't it just because Tatiana is a massive fan? And it was a bit of a joke on that. They needed a famous person in, and it was a bit of an inside joke fun. If that's the case, Baz Lightyear, I was not aware of that. I don't know if any of you guys were. Nice great opportunity for Tatiana to Maslany to meet Megan Thee Stallion and hang out with her and stuff like that. If that's the case, then to Jasmin's point, yeah, that brings a whole new element to the meta of it all, because Tatiana likes Megan Thee Stallion. For all of us who are watching that who don't know about Tatiana's love for Megan Thee Stallion, obviously we're not gonna
I would say that would be like 99% of the people watching.
It would go over our heads. Yeah. But if you knew that probably added an extra level of enjoyment to you, for you, and that is awesome. I'm glad. And now that I know that as well, it makes it a little nicer.
We're warming him up to it, all right, guys. He just has to get out of the system, and
you're gonna break my cold boomer heart. What are you guys doing? Stop changing me. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. No. I'm glad that folks are responding to it. I'm less glad that folks like me are angry about stupid things like this, and feeling the need to go on Twitter.
Your opinion is really, I mean, your opinion is really valid. You shouldn't have to apologize for it because you're being polite about it, and you're being polite about it, and you're defending it rationally as opposed to posting 500 bot comments on somebody's Twitter feed going, you know, you're not J. Jonah Jameson in somebody's Twitter feed demanding pictures of, demanding pictures of She-Hulk not twerking. Like
the woke agenda.
Well, I feel very validated by this, guys. Why can't most conversations about nerd culture be like this? Respectful and welcoming.
We're just not very loud and obnoxious, so they kind of go under the radar, right? So
yes, this is exactly what we need to put in the next MCU movie, because that is just, life, unfortunately. Ugh. But I'm glad. Thank you guys for hearing me out and for letting me stand on that platform for a little bit, and for you out there guys listening to me. Hopefully I didn't cause anyone to drop off at any point during that speech, but if I did, then come back next week. I promise I'll check all this at the door and we won't ever have to talk about twerking ever again. But yeah, having said that, I know that we're a bit over, as I predicted at the beginning of this call. So I wanted to see if there were any last thoughts before we did outros, summaries of the episode, anything else that you guys wanted to talk about. Put it out there.
I was going to throw it back as my outro, but I don't want to upset you further, Mike.
Throw it back, Jasmin. I promise.
My dog. No, I thought it was great. I really, again, it felt very short. Definitely felt very short compared to like with the way WandaVision was cinematic. It's just different, and I'm enjoying the lightheartedness. I'm enjoying the fact that I don't have to sit in front of like the screen and like observe like I'm watching an anime and reading subtitles, and I'm like focusing on every little thing. I feel like very relaxed watching She-Hulk, and I do like it because we've had very serious tones, and even though like I feel like I'm a broken record, as much as I love Miss Marvel, it was heavy as well. Like they dealt with very heavy themes, police brutality, the Pakistan, India, British situation with the oh my god, the what?
The partition, right?
Partition, exactly. Yeah. Dealing with family issues, dealing with being brown. So it was heavy. And I feel like She-Hulk is really honestly like a breath of fresh air where we could just relax. And I feel like it has that LA vibe, which we don't get. And I actually made a tweet the other day. I was incorrect. So let me see if you guys could catch on to this. Is She-Hulk the first LA superhero we've seen in the MCU?
Tony started in Malibu.
Yeah.
There we go, Mike Jinx.
Tony Stark in Malibu. So I thought she was the first hero in LA. I was like, let's do it. So then someone corrected me. It was like Tony Stark had his spot was in Malibu, and then we did have 90s Inglewood, Captain Marvel, and Nick Fury. I don't know if it was based there, but we did have a little bit of LA in that. So I'm enjoying it. I think I think we could just finally sit back and enjoy an MCU show, and She-Hulk is giving it to us. And so I like it a lot. It's refreshing. And
I love that you pointed that out, Jasmin, because literally, even though Tony lived in Malibu and ended up in New York, and even though, Carol Danvers landed in Inglewood area and everything like that, none of those projects were none of them had that explicit LA feel. Right. And I think that She-Hulk is the first that does that. So I think that's a great observation.
It feels good. I'm born and raised LA. So for me, I'm really enjoying it. I'm just like, I like this. And I get the vibe. And then there's Hollywood with I'm sorry, again, Meg Thee Stallion. And I just feel like it's it's fun. And, and when you see her being out there, but not too out there, she still is like conservative to herself, and her family's like all up in her business. I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's a nice touch. And we finally get that, some West Coast love in the MCU.
I love it. Any other final thoughts?
I love, way back at the beginning, Mike, you brought up the idea that this is something like you don't have to be a diehard fan to watch. You don't have to. Working as I do around a lot of people who working as I do at Disney, spending a lot of time at Avengers Campus. a lot of the people that I work with are very into the idea of She-Hulk, and none of them could give two. Like, they're sitting there and they come to me and they're like, "Who's that? Oh, that's okay. I know who that. Cool." And they're like, that's their attitude. That's like, cool. But they'll come to me and they'll be like, "Hey, did you watch She-Hulk yet? I'm gonna go watch it on my lunch break. It's great." And I'm like, "Yeah, I absolutely love it. I want a show for that." And they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's so much fun." And so that I think this is a good gateway to people who might be interested in the MCU. And I like that about it.
I do like anything.
My neighbor who's like, almost 60 years old, from the East Coast, lives in LA the last 30 years. She's just like, "I'm watching She-Hulk and she like literally called me right before we did this. And she's like, "I'm loving She-Hulk," randomly. She's like, "I watched the first episode and I loved it. It's so good. I can't wait to watch the rest." And I was like, surprised she took me up for my advice. Cause we geek out, right? We're like, "Oh yeah, you should watch this." And then the person watches it and then they're like, it's like as if they watched Lord of the Rings, the third movie. They're like, "What in the world just happened?" Like, I'm so lost, And I'm like, "I told you it's good, right?" They're like, "Yeah, it was really pretty, but I'm lost." She-Hulk is easy. It's an easy watch. And I like that about it. And I mean that as a compliment. I feel like that could have been easily something negative, but I think it's just easy watching. And we needed that in the MCU.
Yeah.
I think all of us as Marvel fans, can agree on at least twerking or not twerking. If it's getting people to love the MCU the way that we do, there's nothing wrong with that. It's all awesome. So yeah. All right. Having said that, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, I love its satirical take on news media. Now that I'm just thinking about it, and they're actually using LA-based newscasters, because I recognize, like, "Oh my gosh, that's the guy from this channel or this channel." It's like, so it's pretty funny, and I'm wondering if they're actually aware of how crazy it is, like, or how they can simply take things out of context, like, "She was in the Avengers. Oh no, now she's out of the Avengers," and sort of thing like that. So I'm pretty interested in seeing what their thoughts are, and like on their line of work. So
well said, everyone, and thank you so much for your time today. I think we're gonna have to wrap this one up. So I'll kick it to Mike. Where can everyone find you?
You can find me at That's It LA, the Nerds of Color, and We Live Entertainment, and I am Michael J. Lee. So
amazing, Carolyn.
You can find me at Carolyn in Fandom. That's my first name, CAROLYN in, and then Fandom with a capital F on Twitter, and I'm usually tweeting about She-Hulk lately, and indie video games, horror stuff, and Disney things. So, that's what you find when you get me.
Wonderful. And last but certainly not least, Jasmin.
Jasmin Joestar and everything, spelled just the way you see it on screen. And yeah, feel free to come find me and talk anything nerdy with me. I like everything and way too much.
And last, for me, I'm Mike Manalo, the verbose Mike Manalo, at TidyBullBoy182 on Twitter and Instagram, but you can find me on the Nerds of Color, whattowatch.com, and that's at LA. And thank you guys again for sitting with us. More to come. We've got 9 episodes of this show, and we've only gotten through the first third, so stay tuned.
Wait, there's everyone. 9 episodes?
There's 9 episodes of the She-Hulk, yeah.
What?
Yes!
Yes! There's 9 episodes of this one, guys.
This is the post-credit portion of the show.
I didn't recognize that.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we're finally out of that portion of the Marvel Cinematic Universe where we're rushing things at the last episode because there's only 6 of them. We now actually have 9. So
nice.
Yep.
9 sitcom-sized episodes.
Yep. Which means that all of you fans out there who are watching are going to stick with us through every single of these episodes for at least 6 more weeks. So hopefully you like me a lot. No, I'm kidding. Thank you guys so much for your time. We love you guys. Take it easy. See you next week.